This video is about Lesson 25. Lesson 25 is on page 367. Open up your workbooks to page 367. Today we're going to be, once again, doing percent, but this time we're going to be finding the whole in our percent model. So our percent model is part over whole equals percent over 100. So that means that we're going to have the part and we're going to have the percent, but we're not going to have the whole amount. All right, this little activity right here is just a little warm up opener to figure out a total number of balloons. We're not going to use our percent model for this, but it's kind of interesting. So let's do this. So we've got 4 colors of balloons. Sana and Tara each have a different total number of balloons. What is the least total number of balloons that each girl can have? So we want the least number of balloons. And if we look at Sana, we see that she's got 10% of her balloons are red. Look at your tape diagram here. One of those units is red. So what if she only has one red balloon? Would that work? Well, let's see. If 1 out of 10 is 10%. So you know you're going to multiply 10 by 10 to get 100, multiply 1 by 10, and that gives you 10%. So she could have one red balloon. All right, so let's say red, she's got one of them. Then if you look at, let's go with blue next. Blue is 20%. So 20 out of 100 is how many out of 10? Well, if the one unit has a unit value of 1, then 2 units will have a unit value of 2. And 2 out of 10 definitely does equal 20% because 2 out of 10 is equal to 20 out of 100. So for the blue, she can have 2 balloons. And then for the yellow, that's 30%. And on your tape diagram, that's 3 out of 10. So 3 out of 10 is 30 out of 100. So for the yellow, she can have 3 balloons. And then for the green, that is, I'm going to just kind of write here on this next page, 4 out of 10, which is the same as 40 out of 100. And what color was this? 40% is green. So for the green, she can have 1, 2, 3, 4 balloons. Now, all of those balloons total to 3, 6, 10. Plus 4 is 10. 10 total balloons. That's the least amount of balloons that Sana can have. All right, now let's look at Tara. So when we look at her tape diagram, we see that one of those units, well, actually two of those units are split in half. The least amount of balloons that you can have in one category would be 1, but if that 1 is cut in half, then that would only be a half of a balloon. And you cannot have a half of a balloon. So if each of these unit values is 1, like they are for Sana's balloons, then you're cutting a balloon in half, which you cannot do. So let's see if the unit value is 2, because then the next least number of balloons that you can have in one unit would be 2. So if she has 2 balloons and she wants in the red category, that would be 1, right? Because if the unit value is 2 and we've halved it, that means she's got 1. So 1 out of what equals 5%? All right, so let's do the whole part over whole equals percent over 100. So I cross multiply right here. What's going on with my pen? There we go. If I cross multiply right here, I have 100, and 100 divided by 5 equals 20. So that means 1 out of 20 would be 5%. So then let's check the rest. That would mean that she would have 1 red balloon. All right, and then for the blue, so now let's think about this. If she has 1 red balloon and that unit value is split in half where the red is, half of the 2 pieces would be the 1 red, so the unit value is actually 2. So if the unit value is 2, then that means that for blue, she's going to have 1 whole unit, which is 2, and then a half of a unit, which is 1 more, so she would have 3 blue balloons. And then if you could count the number of yellow that she has, that's going to be 1, 2, 3 and a half, which is 2, 4, 6 plus 1, 7. So 7 yellow balloons. And then for the green, she would have 1, 2, 3, 4 and a half, which is 2, 4, 6, 8 plus a half, 9. And then when you add all of those up, you would get 20. All right, now let's check our percentages. We already know that 1 out of 20 is 5%. What about 3 out of 20? 3 out of 20 is going to be, so 20 times 5 is 100. 3 times 5 is 15. So the blue should be 15%, and it is. All right, and then the yellow is 7 out of 20, which is going to be 20 times 5 is 100. 7 times 5 is 35%, which is correct. And then the green is, I'm going to put it right here, 9 out of 20, which would be 45. Out of 100, which is 45%. So that is correct. So the most amount of balloons that Sana can have is, the least amount, of balloons that Sana can have is 10, and the least amount of balloons that Tara can have is 20. All right, let's go on to what is a whole? And we're going to use our percent model for this, which is our part over whole equals percent over 100. So just as a reminder, I'm just going to draw it right here. Part over whole is, and you can refer to your diagram that I gave you in class, percent over 100. All right, let's read this problem, because clearly we're finding the whole here, so we're going to use our model. I'll just put our work underneath this little squiggly line. All right, if 6 balloons is 30% of the total number of balloons, what is the total number of balloons? It tells us to draw a tape diagram or double number line. I'm just going to use our model that we've got right here. Part over whole equals percent over 100. So, because we can do that. We can do any of those. Any that you would like. I just think that this model is surefire way to find the missing piece and figure it out. Figure out the missing piece. All right, so what do we have? We have 6. It says 6 balloons is 30%. So 6 balloons is not 100%. 6 balloons is only 30%. So that's only part of the 100%. So 6 goes where part goes. And then 30 is the percent, and it goes over 100. Remember, in this model, 100 is always going to be in the same spot. That's a given. That is always given. Then you'll be given 2 other parts, and you'll have to find the third part. And in this case, it's the whole. All right, so now it's time to cross multiply and divide. So let's do 6 times 100. Which is 600. And then 600 divided by 30 is 20. So that's our answer. 20 is the whole. So 6 out of 20 is 30 out of 100. So then the question is, let me go back up here and see the question. If 6 balloons is 30% of the total number of balloons, what is the total number of balloons? The total number of balloons is 20. All right. Let's do number 2. Kayla has 12 red balloons. If this is 3% of the total number of balloons she has, what is the total number of balloons Kayla has? All right. Part over whole equals percent over 100. So it says Kayla has 12 red balloons and this is 3%. So 12 is not 100%, it is the part. 3 is the percent, and of course the percent goes over 100. Cross multiply and divide. 12 times 100 is 1200. And then 1200 divided by 3 is 400. So the total number of balloons Kayla has is 400. All right, that was easy. Let's do another one. Now this one says solving multi-step percent problems. So we're probably going to have to calculate the whole and then take another step to answer the question. So let's see. Let's get started on this. Toby has raised $225 for his favorite charity. This is 60% of his goal. How much more money does Toby need to raise to meet his goal? So it looks like we're going to have to first figure out his goal. And then after we figure out his goal, subtract to figure out the amount left. All right, so part over whole equals percent over 100. It says he's raised $225 for his favorite charity, and this is 60% of his goal. So it's not 100% of his goal, it is 60% of his goal. Percent goes over 100. 225 is the part. We need to find the whole, cross multiply, and divide. So 225 times 100 equals 22,500. Then 22,500 divided by 60 is actually equal to, if I put it in my calculator, I can find it quickly, 375. So 375 is the goal. So $300.75 equals his goal. So then to figure out how much he's got left, you take his goal, subtract what he's raised, which is 225, and that will give you $150. So $150 is what he has left to raise. All right, number 5. Lisa has raised $750 for her favorite charity. This is 120% of her goal. How much extra money has Lisa raised so far? So for this one, we've got to, once again, figure out the goal. So we got to figure out the whole on our percent model. And then we have to subtract to find out how much extra she needs to raise, or how much extra she has raised, because she obviously has raised more than her goal, because her goal would be 100%. So 120 is more than 100%. So 750 is not 100%, it's the 120%. So it's going to go across from the 120 on the model. Percent goes over 100. So 750 goes with 120, and we need to figure out what the 100% is. Cross multiply and divide. So that's 750 times 100, which is 775,000. And then 75,000 divided by 120 is 625. So 625 was the 100% goal. But 750 is actually what she raised. So she raised extra. How much extra did she raise? All you got to do is say 750 minus 625, and that'll get you 125. So she raised $125 extra above her 100% goal. All right, for this one it says, number 6, it says, the 6th, 7th, and 8th grades each raised money for their middle school. The 6th grade raised 40% of the total amount raised. The 7th grade raised 22% of the total amount raised. And the 8th grade raised the rest. If the 8th grade raised $1,368, what is the total amount of money raised by the 3 grades? So for this one, what we're going to have to do first is figure out what percentage the 8th graders raised. Because we have their portion of the money that was raised, so we need to match it with a percent so that we can find the total amount of money that they raised to put on our model. So I'm going to figure out what they raised by just taking the 100% and subtracting the 40% and then the 22%, and then whatever's left over would be the percentage that the 8th graders raised. And that's going to be 38. So now we've got our percent that the 8th graders raised for our model. So their part is 38 out of their part is 38, and that's 38% was $1,368. That's 100% of what the 8th graders raised. That's why it's across from 100%, but it's actually only 38%. Oh, I am messing this one up. Hold on. All right, let's pick back up at this point. So 38% is what the 8th graders raised of the total amount raised. All right, and the amount of money that the 8th graders raised, so that's 38%. 38 goes over 100. So I set it up wrong. So if you set it up like I set it up the first time, we were wrong. If you caught my mistake, awesome. That means you're paying attention. Good job. So 38 is the percent. 38%. This is probably what messed me up. I didn't have the percent sign. So 38% is what the 8th graders raised, and the 8th graders raised $1,368. So 1,368 is 38% of the 100% raise. We're trying to figure out the 100% raise by all three grades. So let's cross multiply right here. 1,368 times 100 is 136,800. And then take that and divide it by the 38. And that will get you 3,600. All right, so the total amount raised is $3,600. So it's $3,600 raised by all three grades. The 6th graders and the 7th graders and the 8th graders combined raised $3,600. All right, let's look at this last one. So for this last one, it says Una and Scott were the only two candidates who ran for 6th grade class president. Una received 45% of the votes. Scott received 18 more votes than Una. How many votes did Scott receive? All right, so for this one, we're going to have to do a tape diagram, but we're going to be doing a percent tape diagram. So we're going to be taking a tape and dividing it into 10 sections. All right, now 45%, I'm going to use a different color for this, it'll help. So 45% is 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So from here to here is 45%, and that's Una's amount. All right, and then from here to here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5, which is 55%. Now it says that Scott, and this is Scott's amount. Now this is right here. We'll have this one unit right here be the number of votes that Scott got. 18. He got 18 more, right? Because if we eliminate that one unit, they both have the same amount. 4, 1, 2, 3, look. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4.5, and Una has 1, 2, 3, 4.5. So the extra amount of votes Scott has equals his extra unit. So that means that 18 goes in each one of these units. All right, so the unit value is 18. So then the math goes like this. 5 units for Scott, right, because we're trying to figure out how many votes Scott received. So 5 times 18 is 90. Don't forget the half unit. Half of 18 is 9. So 5.5 units is equal to 90 plus 9. And let me write units right here so it doesn't look like 5.5 is equal to 90 plus 9. It's 5.5 units are equal to 90 plus 9, which is 99 votes. So Scott got 99 votes. All right, folks. That's the last of the classwork. What I want you to do now is to go ahead and do the exit ticket. Turn the exit ticket in. And then after you do the exit ticket, I want you to work on the practice problems. Complete all of the practice problems quietly at your desk. Work all of the practice problems.